Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has doubled down on a policy of uncompromising resistance, declaring in a public address that Kyiv will defend every inch of its territory and vowing to continue fighting until all occupied lands are liberated. Speaking at a ceremony honoring fallen soldiers, Zelensky made no reference to negotiations, ceasefire, or diplomatic off-ramps, instead framing the conflict as an existential struggle against occupation. His remarks reflect a hardening stance within Ukraine's leadership, which has increasingly dismissed calls for compromise from both domestic critics and international observers. This position comes amid mounting battlefield pressure, with Russian forces amassing an estimated 170,000 troops along the Donbas front and intensifying operations around the strategic hub of Pokrovsk. Despite severe manpower shortage and dwindling Western ammunition stocks, Ukraine's command has opted for a strategy of attrition, relying on elite special force, drone units, and targeted sabotage to offset Russia's numerical and firepower advantage. Zelensky's rhetoric, while galvanizing for domestic audience, has drawn concern from European allies who fear the absence of a coherent endgame to prolong the war indefinitely. With winter approaching and energy infrastructure under constant threat, Kyiv's insistence on total victory without articulating a realistic path to achieve it has deepened anxieties in capitals from Berlin to Warsaw about the sustainability of long-term support. Russia's war effort has entered a new phase of institutionalization, driven by legislative and demographic changes that signals Moscow's preparation for protracted conflict. The State Duma recently enacted a sweeping reform that transforms conscription into a year-round process, eliminating the traditional spring and fall draft cycle in favor of continuous recruitment. The shift, combined with expanded mobilization authority and streamlined training pipelines, allow the Russian military to maintain steady troops rotations and replenish frontline losses without resorting to another large-scale mobilization that could trigger domestic unrest. Coupled with the deployment of nearly 170,000 fresh troops to the Donetsk region, these measures demonstrate that Russia's war machine is no longer operating in crisis mode, but has transitioned into a sustained, industrialized campaign. The Kremlin has avoided triumphalist rhetoric, instead framing its action as strategic pressure designed to exhaust Ukrainian defenses and force political settlement on Moscow's term. Meanwhile, parallel developments along Russia's western border underscore this dual-track approach. In the Republic of Karelia, local authorities have formed volunteer militias to assist border guards in monitoring the frontier with Finland, following NATO's largest ever drills on Finnish soil involving 15,000 troops. Endorsed by President Vladimir Putin, this grassroots defense initiative echoed Soviet-era territorial defense doctrine and signaled Moscow's intent to deter any potential NATO incursion while focusing its main combat power on Ukraine. The European Union's unity is fracturing under the strain of internal economic tension, as Hungary, Slovakia, and Poland refuse to lift their bans on Ukrainian agricultural imports. Despite the new EU-Ukraine trade pact designed to deepen economic integration, leaders in Budapest, Bratislava, and Warsaw argue that unrestricted grain imports are devastating local farmers who cannot compete with subsidized or war-displaced Ukrainian produce. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban and Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico have accused the European Commission of prioritizing Kyiv's wartime needs over the livelihood of EU citizens, turning what was meant to be a show of solidarity into a political crisis within the bloc. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk finds himself caught between Brussels' demand for market harmonization and fierce domestic opposition from rural constituency. The so-called Grain Revolt has exposed a widening rift between Western European elites who view support for Ukraine as a moral and strategic imperative, and Central European governments, which face immediate economic and electoral consequences from open border policies. This division threatens to undermine not only agricultural policy but broaden defense and financial aid packages as dissenting nations leverage their veto power to extract concessions. The standoff illustrates how the war's economic spillover is reshaping European politics, with national interests increasingly trumping collective resolve. Beyond Europe, geopolitical tensions are escalating in unexpected theaters, most notably the Caribbean, where a significant U.S. naval deployment has raised alarms in Caracas. Satellite imagery confirms the presence of the amphibious assault ship USS Iwo Jima, accompanied by two Arleigh-Burke-class destroyer operating less than 200 kilometers of Venezuela's coast. The group conducted live-fire exercise, according to Sky News, while the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS Gerald R Ford and 3 additional destroyers have also been repositioned to the region. While U.S. officials have not publicly stated the mission's objective, the timing coincides with heightened concerns over Russian and Iranian influence in Venezuela, as well as reports of illicit gold and oil trades funding the Maduro regime. The deployment is widely interpreted as a show of force aimed at deterring further alignment between Caracas and Moscow, particularly as Russia deepened its military footprint in the global south. This move underscores Washington's broader strategy under President Donald Trump to counter Russian expansionism not only in Europe but across Latin America, a region long considered part of the U.S. sphere of influence. As great power competition intensifies, secondary theaters like the Caribbean are becoming new flashpoints, reflecting a return to Cold War-style global posturing, with nuclear-capable systems being tested by Russia and long-range missiles potentially heading toward Ukraine. The world appeared to be entering a more volatile and multipolar phases of strategic confrontation. If you have made it this far, congratulations, you have unlocked the truth. I want to ask you a quick question though. We are seeing Russia institutionalize a long-term war footing with its year-round conscription, while simultaneously key European allies like Poland and Hungary are openly defying EU policy over economic self-interest in the grain revolt. Does this signal that the initial Western solidarity in support of Ukraine is fundamentally unsustainable in the face of a prolonged conflict, and why? Join the debate. We want to hear your insightful opinion on where this is all heading in our community. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like the video, hit the notification bell, and most importantly, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.